Welcome to this public forum with the candidates for the Legislative District 35 House. I am Dot Frank with the League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator. This candidate forum has been organized by the League of Women Voters of Bismarck-Mandan and is co-sponsored by the Bismarck Tribune and Dakota Media Access. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that promotes the informed participation of all citizens in their government. The League does not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. There are 4 candidates running for election for 2 seats for the Legislative District 35 House, and all candidates have joined us here tonight. They are Karen Carls, Bob Martinson, Darrell Miller, and Tracy Potter. The audience is invited to submit questions using the index cards provided to you. Viewers at home may phone in questions by calling 355-1312 between now and 7:45 p.m. this evening, October 1st. That number again is 355-1312. This is intended to be a respectful exchange of ideas. Our purpose this evening is to provide voters with information about the candidates and their positions on issues that affect the people of District 35. Now let's meet our candidates. You will each have 1 minute to tell us why you are seeking election to the Legislative District 35 House. And we'll begin with you, Mr. Bob Martinson.
Thank you very much, Dot, and thank you to the organizations that are sponsoring this forum tonight. I think this is a good way for people that don't know us to get to know us and learn a little bit more about us. I'm interested in running again this year because there are some projects that I'm particularly interested in working on and helping to complete. As an example, I think Bismarck is in need of a new interchange. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, I should say, so I work with the money stuff. And I think Bismarck needs a new interchange east of Bismarck. That's important to us. I think that Bismarck has reached the point where we certainly need oil impact money. I've criticized and chided my friends from the West that don't think that Bismarck is part of the West. But the entire state is impacted with the oil boom. And Bismarck certainly has been impacted also, and we need to share in some of that impact money.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Tracy Potter.
Thank you, Dot. Thank you to the League. I'm running because I think I can help. I want to help our district, Bismarck, and North Dakota. Push down. At a critical moment in our history. I'm a very competent legislator, although not so competent with that, who answers all his emails, all his mail, and who treats every citizen with equal respect and never forgets. I'll never forget that I represent Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and people who just don't care about politics at all. But they all want government on their side. And being on their side right now means recognizing Bismarck is an oil impact community. It's obvious that we are. If you look at the traffic, at the growth, at the home values and rent, at crime, that new jail that we're building, that is perfectly a perfect example of an oil impact in our community and should be supported by the state. I'm running to put my experience, my attitudes, my skills to work for the people of District 35. I'm running to serve. And because someone in the State House has to stand up to Al Carlson.
Thank you. Same opportunity for you, Mr. Darrell Miller. 1 minute to tell us why you're seeking office.
Hi, I'm Darrell Miller. I'm originally from St. Anthony. I'll tell you a little bit about myself quickly. For those that don't know me, being I'm the new kid on the block here. Born and raised in St. Anthony on a farm, raised registering as cattle. I'm a member of the St. Anthony Variant out there. Also a member of St. Anne's Church here in Bismarck. Business agent with Local 49, operating engineers. And I've also, the reason I'm running is I don't feel the citizens of this district and this state are being represented very well. District 35, We have more public employee workers here than anywhere in the state. They're not being represented. The salaries are too low. Every session they want to take pensions and change their pension plan and their insurance, that they pay part of it. It's just bad legislation, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you. And now 1 minute, Mrs. Karen Carls.
Thank you. Dot? I'm Representative Karen Carls. I've lived in District 35 since 1974. I'm a graduate of Minot State University with a degree in medical technology. I was elected to represent the citizens of District 35 in 2006. I serve on the Judiciary Committee and the Government and Veterans Affairs. In 2001, Governor Hoeven appointed me to represent consumers on the North Dakota State Electrical Board. I currently serve as board secretary. More recently, I was appointed to the North Dakota 125th Anniversary Committee. By the way, the big celebration will be on November 2nd in the heart of District 35 at our North Dakota Heritage Center, and everyone's welcome. My husband Ken and I have been married for 43 years and raised our 4 children in Bismarck. It's been an honor to serve District 35 as a member of the House of Representatives, and I will hope to continue working on the issues important to our district.
Thank you all. Now we'll move on to the questions developed by members of the League of Women Voters, the Bismarck Tribune, and our audience here tonight, as well as viewers at home. For the audience here to submit a question, please use the index cards provided on your chairs. Viewers at home may phone in questions by dialing 355-1312 between now and 7:45 tonight, October 1st. That number again is 355-1312. Candidates have not been given advance copies of the questions, and each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond to each question. Please comply with our time restrictions so that we may get to as many questions as possible. Our timer will let you know when you are down to 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and then stop. And now on to the questions. We'll begin with you, Bob. First question. What issues are you passionate about that you believe makes you a great candidate for this position?
Well, thank you. And although we weren't given the questions, you asked that first, the last 2 forms.
I was hoping that was our little secret.
I care very much about education. I serve on the Education and Environment Division of Appropriations, and I'm very supportive of education for our kids, whether it's K-12 or higher ed. And if we can provide the proper education for our children, they're going to be just fine. But we aren't succeeding at that and at times, and we need to do better. Our kids aren't learning as well as they probably should and doing as well on some of the tests that they probably should. And I'm interested in working on those issues. So other than the bricks and mortar stuff that I've already talked about, children's education is very important to me.
Thank you. Now, same question for you, Tracy.
During the campaign, I've already knocked on several thousand doors, and the thing that I'm passionate about, or the issue that comes to mind for me, is the same one that the citizens of North Dakota, citizens of District 35 are talking about. It's about oil. And this is really an issue in 2 different ways. It's both the concern about what's happening to our precious Badlands and this beautiful thing that we're going to leave to our grandchildren if we can. What can we save there? But it's also about the distribution of the money that's come in. We have about $8 billion in the Treasury. Really, it's in this fund, and this fund, and this fund. And yet property taxes are going up 10% in Bismarck. There's a disconnect, and people are concerned about it. Also, we have the ability with this to make very strategic investments in education, and that's really the critical thing that we need to do in the next biennium.
Same question for you, Daryl. What issues are you passionate about that you believe makes you a great candidate for this position?
Number one, the doors I've knocked on has been property tax relief. We hear it session after session after session, we're going to lower property taxes, we're going to lower it, and it's never done. Last year they dropped them a little bit, then they turned around and raised the assessed value of the homes up. There was no break. People are really frustrated with all the money we have sitting here in our state coffers, and nobody is seeing any relief. That's my number one issue. Another one is taxing of senior citizens' Social Security checks. We're one of 12 states in the nation that still tax their senior citizens, and that's just plain wrong, and that's what I want to get changed.
Thank you. And now, Karen.
Thank you, Dot. I would have to agree with Bob. My number one passionate topic is education. I served 3 terms on the Education Committee. We heard a lot of bills. We passed a lot of new money for education, especially in this last session. I think we're up to funding now at 80%, an 80% level. Tax relief has always been on my radar screen. I would like to see a lot of our taxes lowered.
Thank you all. We'll begin this second question with you, Tracy. This question was provided by an audience member this evening. Increase taxes on the oil companies. Why do the citizens of North Dakota, including the elderly on fixed incomes, have to pay the infrastructure tax caused by the oil companies?
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand that question, but I will talk about oil and taxes. The fact is that the state is very fortunate that we passed, as the people, the 6.5% oil extraction tax in 1980, which has provided us now with billions in the state treasury that we can use to provide tax relief to senior citizens, as my running mate has suggested, to property tax relief, and serious property tax relief. The kind that I suggest is where you give the relief directly to the taxpayers. And in fact, in the 2007 session, I introduced the largest tax relief cut, the tax cut bill of that session. And it was delivering 10% property tax relief on your income tax to every citizen. That could be 50% today, and it would only cost a few weeks of oil taxes.
Thank you. Same question for you, Daryl.
Could you repeat it, please?
The question reads, increase taxes on the oil companies. Why do the citizens of North Dakota, including the elderly on fixed income, have to pay the infrastructure, and I would like to modify, damaged by oil companies?
Like Tracy said, we are in a boom right now. Infrastructure is not keeping up. Housing is not keeping up. The rates are through the roof. Is it 100% the oil company's fault? Probably not. We've been behind the 8 ball for a while here. We are blessed with all the income that we have coming in from these guys. We want them to succeed, but to solve that issue is basically trying to get the affordable housing for the people of this state, and that is through property tax relief and rental relief.
Thank you. And now, Karen.
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. The question initially states, increase taxes on the oil companies. Why do the citizens of North Dakota, including the elderly on fixed income, have to pay for the infrastructure damaged by the oil companies?
Well, the premise of that question is a little unusual. I think that all of our citizens, even senior citizens on fixed income, get a lot of benefits from the revenues that this state earns from oil taxes. I don't really agree that it targets one group to pay for the infrastructure damage. We all pay.
Thank you. And now, Bob?
Like the others have said, there really is no such thing as an infrastructure tax. We do all pay the taxes for the roads and for other things that we do. But last session, we appropriated almost $5 billion to go back to the oil-producing counties and for infrastructure and for the highways and transportation. So I think that we're doing quite a bit in that area. Not to say that we can't do more, and we'll certainly take a look at that next session, but I think that we are sending a lot of money back to the oil-producing counties.
Thank you. Next question will begin with Daryl. Cities in North Dakota continue to struggle to keep up the needs for safe roads, clean water, waste disposal, and more. What needs to be done to address the immediate and future infrastructure needs?
The state needs to put more money towards them. Quite frankly, the state has dropped the ball. We've been behind since this oil boom started. I'm out there, literally, I drive around there every week for my job, and I see what these small towns are going through. It's unbelievable, the stress that has been put on these, because the housing issues, nobody can find a place to live. If they can find, it's $2,000 to $3,000 a month for rent, and it's just unfeasible. The state has to pay more money to these communities to help them out. They can't do it on themselves.
Thank you. Karen?
Well, I grew up in a little town 50 miles southeast of here, and they, granted, are not seeing the benefit of the oil boom. What happens in the legislature, though, is we have to weigh the needs of those small towns in the eastern part of the state that are not in oil patch country with the extreme needs in oil patch towns. That's part of the job. We listen to the testimony, we hear the bills, we vote on these things. And that's how it's a process of give and take.
Thank you. And now, Bob, same question. Cities in North Dakota continue to struggle to keep up with the need for safe roads, clean water, waste disposal, and more. What needs to be done to address immediate and future infrastructure needs?
I'm not sure that all cities in North Dakota face that problem. It's pretty much of a Western problem that you're talking about. And I love rural North Dakota. I'm a big believer in the small communities. They're the heartbeat of America. And we need to do everything that we can to help them preserve the wonderful way of life that they've had for the last many, many, many years. And unfortunately, it's changing, and it's not always changing for the good. So whatever we can do to help them live the life that they're accustomed to, I think is very important for us.
Thank you. And now, Tracy.
It's simply a good business decision on the part of the state to invest in the oil patch. In the area where the funds are coming from, the infrastructure needs to be increased in order to facilitate the oil industry and continue the growth in this area. But I think it's a mistake to think that the problems that we see of oil, the very good side of oil, but the problems we see, I think it's a mistake to see them as strictly rural or Western problems. Right here in Bismarck, my neighbors are feeling the pinch. They look worried. They are worried, and they're worried about the fact that rents are going up, that the traffic flows are different, that there's crime in their communities, and they're putting locks on the doors, and they're putting up cameras. We will represent Bismarck. We will represent an urban area, and our concerns need to be for the citizens of District 35.
Thank you. Next question begins with you, Karen. Rape, human trafficking, sex crimes, domestic violence, and other crimes against women and children are becoming more common every day in our community. Do you have any ideas for addressing those issues?
That is becoming a huge problem. In our last session, we heard from our Attorney General, and he has several proposals that we funded to work on these issues. Of course, we need more money always for law enforcement, and I believe that we have put quite a few more highway patrolmen in the western part of the state. We have training programs in place. I think that the Attorney General will have a good handle on this at some point.
Thank you. And now, Bob.
Unfortunately, that's one of the downsides to a prospering, booming economy that's bringing a lot of folks into the state. And I support working with the Attorney General, increasing his budget with enforcement, the highway patrol budgets, the county and city law enforcement agencies. And I think that we need very tough laws to address those crimes that you've talked about, and people that are convicted of committing crimes against children and women and people in general should be put away for a long time.
Thank you. And now, Tracy.
I completely agree, but the legislature's done half the job here, because these are crimes, because the past legislatures have already made them crimes. We can increase the penalties, certainly, but the other half of the job is to fund the agencies, to fund the law enforcement agencies. And so you know, there's an executive branch and a legislative branch, and the legislature has done part of its job, do the rest, and fund the executive branch so that the Attorney General and his people and BCI can do their work. We also have to count on the U.S. Attorney and the federal government to step in, because these are crimes that are often federal in nature. And everything that happens, of course, on the Fort Berthold Reservation is federal or tribal in nature, and we need to help Fort Berthold just as much as we help anyplace else.
Thank you. And now, Daryl, same question. Rape, human trafficking, sex crimes, domestic violence, and other crimes against women and children are becoming more common every day in our community. Do you have any ideas for how to address these concerns?
Well, it's really horrible what is going on out there, between all the crime, the drugs, the prostitution, all the stuff that's moved in since the oil boom has hit. And where there's money, this stuff follows. Everybody's pretty much touched on it. We need more officers on the ground. We also need to help them with their housing issues out there. I've talked to officers out there. They can't afford to live out there when they get hired. They're sleeping on the couch of a fellow officer because they can't afford $2,500 a month rent on an apartment. And we need to more than just replace the guys that are retiring. I talked to Ohio patrolmen. Half the guys that they replaced, that was hired, replaced guys that are retiring. So we really have not hired a lot of new officers that we need. So we need to definitely spend more money and get more people, boots on the ground.
Thank you all. Next question was supplied by our audience this evening, and we'll begin back with you, Bob. Do you support a single-payer health care insurance system?
No.
Thank you. Tracy?
Yes, and I have for pretty much my entire adult life. And in fact, in North Dakota, we're so close to it because Blue Cross Blue Shield insures 90% of the people who are insured. I believe it's just efficient. The question is health care a right? And I believe that it is. It's a right for everyone. What's the most efficient way to deliver that health care? It's a universal single-payer system, and our neighbors to the north have found this to be true. Saskatchewan led the way, Manitoba after that. I really believe that what we need to do is we need to tweak Obamacare. We need a waiver from the federal Obamacare and let North Dakota, which has all the resources in the world, take care of its people itself.
Thank you. Daryl, same question. Do you support a single-payer health care insurance system?
I'm on the fence on this one. As a union representative, we have our own insurance. We're self-funded, and we have some of the best health care there is out there. I would not want to give that up for a state-funded or federally funded program. That was part of the deal when Obamacare, as they call it, came down, is that you could keep your insurance. Can the state probably do a better job than what has been given to us so far? More than likely, and we should have done that in the first place, but they opted out and they did not do it. They had the chance to have a state-funded insurance and they chose not to do it. We need to find something so that we get everybody insured. Everybody should be insured.
Thank you. Now, Karen.
Would you repeat the question?
The question read, do you support a single-payer health care insurance system?
Emphatically no.
Thank you all. Next question, and we'll begin with you, Tracy. In your opinion, does North Dakota have an adequate balance between funding social programs and reducing business and commerce taxes?
Well, we've certainly done the latter. In fact, in the 2007 session, 2009 sessions, when I served in the state senate, I think I voted for about 5 different corporate tax cuts, some that didn't even pass. I just figured the fact is that we have so much money sitting in the state government that we should, in fact, return it to the people, however that is, whether it's the businesses or the individuals. But no, we don't fund our human services adequately. The healthcare workers, the home healthcare workers, are not paid well enough. The people who are doing the toughest jobs, the most important jobs of taking care of our lame and our elderly, are not compensated well enough. We have a long way to go to make sure that everybody has a decent, high quality of life.
Thank you. Now, Daryl. Question was, in your opinion, does North Dakota have an adequate balance between funding social programs and reducing business and commerce taxes?
I think it's pretty close. The commerce taxes are about where they should be. Like Tracy said, the funding of the medical fields is not enough. There are so many workers in this state that are underpaid because not everybody is working in an oil patch making $30 an hour. There's a lot of the people that are here that are not making that, and they're struggling to make ends meet with the housing costs and everything else that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Karen.
Well, Dot, I believe these are two separate issues. On the one hand, the question was social service spending. One thing I've seen over the years that we've really improved on is spending the money to help people stay in their homes when they get into the golden years. That saves the state a lot of money, which can go into other pockets. As far as reducing taxes on businesses, we need businesses to come into the state. We're in competition with other states that lower their business taxes. Lowering those taxes brings the businesses in, which gives us more jobs, more income, and more tax revenue, which will then fund those good social programs.
Thank you. Now back to Bob.
Thank you. I'm not in favor of reducing corporate taxes or business taxes. I think that home health care is very important. We have spent more money on that. Both Karen and I have voted to increase the pay on people that take care of developmentally disabled. Some of the finest people in North Dakota are doing that, and they are rather underpaid. Those people do that because of the love of the work that they do, and I support them, and I think Karen and I will both continue to support any increases in wages that they need.
Thank you all. And now a question supplied by one of our viewers this evening. Again, this is a reminder for those who are watching at home. They can submit their questions by calling us at 355-1312 by 7:45 tonight, which is October 1st. And this question will begin with a response from Daryl. There was a study that showed a lack of mental and behavioral health services in our state. Will you support legislation that is developed to address these needs?
Yes, absolutely. The mentally challenged need all the help they can get. Well, how much funding is there now? I honestly couldn't tell you, but we got to do whatever we can to help these people.
Thank you. And Karen?
Would you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. The question is, there was a study that showed a lack of mental and behavioral health services in our state. Will you support legislation that is developed to address these needs?
Well, I'm not sure if the questioner is implying that we need to fund those with insurance or what the issue is there, but over the years we have gained more and more programs through the Department of Health, I believe, and Human Services to help, say, the family with an autistic child or with a birth defect, or it's an ongoing issue. We fund them just about every session.
Thank you. And now Bob.
That's a very general question, so I will say, generally speaking, yes, I do. It's hard to give just a unqualified yes when you really don't know all of the aspects of it. But I was there in one of the original group that fought for and worked very hard for a number of years to get Blue Cross and Blue Shield to care for mental illnesses. And those are terrible problems for people, and it took a long time to convince folks that a broken arm is easy to repair. A broken mind is difficult, and we need to provide the help that we can for the issues that you're referring to.
Thank you. And Tracy, same question.
Well, I haven't seen the study, but I'll believe the conclusions that are being drawn there. But one thing I really like about the legislative process is having testimony and taking testimony and hearing the experts speak about it before you jump in and vote one way or the other. But I will say this: mental and behavioral issues tie right back to the issue we were talking about before about crime. You know, if you can help people on the front end and resolve their mental illness problems, you'll reduce the crime and the need to inappropriately then punish people that should be in one institution as opposed to in another institution. So yes, I'd certainly support the funding and of appropriate mental and behavioral services, health services, but I'd like to see more information.
Thank you. This question will begin with Karen as a respondent. The question reads, do you support defined benefit or defined contributions for public employee pensions?
That is a huge question. Of course, I support the defined benefits, but I know that there's a large movement out there to change our pension system over to the other system. I think we took a tiny step by making it optional for new hires, that or even people who are in the system that would like to switch. I think that's a good way to test it, to see if it's popular, to see what our state employees, how they feel about it.
Thank you. And Bob?
I absolutely support the defined benefit plan. The defined benefit plan was put in place specifically to help and keep and retain good long-term state employees. I was there when the system was changed, and it was changed because people that had their money on their own invested in the market and invested in other things didn't have an adequate retirement when they were done working. So we changed it, and I had a lot of friends who were younger and severely criticized for changing that plan because they didn't want to contribute to it at that time. They don't contribute to it now. And 2 years later, they came back and really pleaded with us to be able to get back into the program. So I do not support any change in our defined benefit program. I have a long time voting record of that, and will be on the forefront of the fighters to keep it the way that it is.
Tracy, same question. Do you support defined benefit or defined contribution for public employee pensions?
I support unequivocally defined benefits, but and it's a promise that has been made to our employees, and it's one that I benefit from because my wife is a state employee, and her benefits have helped me achieve a point where I can actually see retirement at some point in my future. But this is kind of an inside baseball term, and people should understand what we're talking about here, which is simply that in order to recruit and retain good employees, the wages for state employees are generally lower than those in the private sector, but the benefits are generally better, which allows us to maintain and retain those good employees. This is something that we need to do, and anybody who represents District 35 had better be 100% for the state employees, because our district is where the state capital is. More people, more state employees live in our district than in any other district in the state.
Thank you. Now, Daryl.
Okay, thanks, Tracy, for stealing my thunder. I 100% am for the defined benefit plan. That is the pension that I have myself. Unequivocally, it is the most secure pension plan in the country. The least amount of risk to the people that invest in it. Under no circumstances would I ever want that changed. The people can retire. They know their pension's there. It's not like a 401k when the stock market crashes and a lot of these people lost half their money or more. Here, there is very little risk. It's the best pension plan in the country, hands down. So absolutely keep it the way it is.
Thank you. Now another question as prepared by one of our audience members today. This question will begin with Bob. What are your views on Second Amendment rights?
Oh, I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. I guess I could say that Karen and I have been somewhat endorsed, if that's the right term. We've both received A ratings. I think Karen might have gotten an A+. So we have a pretty strong record of being in support of the Second Amendment.
Thank you.
That pretty much answers Karen's for her.
We'll see once we come around. And now, Tracy, same question. What are your views on the Second Amendment rights?
I believe the Second Amendment is an amendment to the U.S. federal Constitution, and I already took an oath to swore that I'd uphold it. So I believe in the Second Amendment. I am a hunter. I'm a gun owner. The only reason I didn't get an A from the NRA when I did it in 2006 is that I was a challenging Democrat. They give those to Republicans and to incumbents, and not to Democrats very often. But no, I think it's something that North Dakota's tradition is one of gun ownership, of love of the outdoors, and of hunting. And I think anybody that messes with that is messing with North Dakota.
Thank you. Darrell?
Absolutely agree with it. I own guns myself, love to hunt, and it's every person's right in North Dakota to own a firearm.
Thank you. Karen?
I'm very proud to say I support the Second Amendment. I have my concealed carry permit. I'm a secretary of a local gun club. I have boys that hunt, a husband that hunts. Very much support the Second Amendment.
Thank you all. This next question will begin with Tracy. The Center for Public Integrity recently gave North Dakota an F on state government accountability and transparency due to its lack of a legislative ethics commission. Do you believe that an ethics process should be put in place in North Dakota?
I see no harm, but I don't believe that everyone is aware that those of us who have served in the legislature have sat through the ethics presentation each session. The Legislative Council comes down and tells us what we're supposed to do and mind our P's and Q's and what the ethics are. North Dakota is very lucky. We have a pretty transparent system. And we have the most democratic, small d democratic system available to us. If you don't like your elected officials, you can recall them. If you don't like the things they pass, you can refer them. If you don't like that they didn't take any action, you can initiate. I think we have a great system, and I think there's something flawed in giving North Dakota an F on ethics.
Thank you. Same question for you, Darrell.
Okay. We have an honest government. We do. If there was something that was going on really bad up there, we'd have heard about it. But I still don't see a problem with having a committee there that if there ever was an issue, that it would be there to investigate whatever was going on. It wouldn't cost nothing. I see no problem in having it.
Thank you. And now Karen.
Thank you, Dot. We do have a very open process in our legislature. Every bill gets a hearing, every bill gets a vote. There's not a situation where a committee chairman can put a bill in the drawer and effectively kill it. We have a citizen legislature. We all have real jobs, real lives. We're not full-time. We don't have employees. I just think our process is open and simple and honest.
Thank you. Now, Bob.
I've never heard of that group before. I've never read the report. I don't know where they're from, and I don't particularly care what they have to say about our process in North Dakota. I think the other panel members have really expressed my opinion on our openness, and in all of my time there, I've never seen that we've had an ethics problem at all, not a one, not even a hint of one.
Thank you. This next question will start with you, Darrell. This was provided by someone who had phoned in a question. Even though we have unparalleled air pollution from flaming in the west, along with 25 billion tons of coal pollution in the middle, what is your plan to update the state health department's outdated air quality monitoring system that ignores these toxic hotspots?
Well, the flaring is an issue. No other state in the country has more than 1% flaring. We're hovering around 30%. That is an issue that definitely needs to be addressed, and more than what it has been to this point. Our coal-fired power plants, they're not spewing everything in the air as bad as what they make that sound. We have some of the cleanest air quality coming out of our plants out of any state in the nation. I helped build some of them. I've maintained them, and I wish when the president was here that he'd have came up and toured our plants when he was here in the state. There's nothing wrong with our coal-fired plants.
Thank you. Karen?
Wow, I agree with Daryl. I totally disagree with the premise of the question. I think it's very loaded, and our coal industry has done a wonderful job of keeping the air clean. The flaring issue is being addressed as we speak. Our companies are working very, very hard to take care of that issue. It's partially an issue of economics. The gases that are flared aren't worth enough to separate them out and bottle them up and send them in pressurized pipelines and that type of thing yet. But the time will come when the technology is developed and we can take care of those issues, and flaring will disappear from North Dakota.
Thank you, Karen. And now Bob.
Well, clean air and clean water are obviously important to us all who live here. We drink the water, we breathe the air, and next session, if the Health Department makes a case where they need more employees, more funding to help maintain the quality that we have here, or if private citizens come and make the case that we need to do things better, I'll certainly listen to that.
Thank you. And now Tracy.
There is a problem, and burying our heads doesn't get rid of it. I suggested in the, I believe, 2007 session, I introduced a study resolution to see how we could help the coal plants eliminate mercury, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide from the plants. Give them back the money that we collect from their taxes to help them along the lines of having not just meeting federal air quality guidelines, but of being the best air in the country. Why don't we do that? As far as flaring goes, I hate waste. And waiting for us to be able to, for something to happen, to get our arms around it, is dead wrong, because we're losing that gas. We're putting it up into the atmosphere. It's global warming without any benefits whatsoever. We really do need to put our hands on this. My brother's an oil man. He cannot believe that our state allows this to take place the way it is.
Thank you. And now we'll engage in a discussion around education. This question will begin with, looks like Karen this time around. If elected, will you support increased state funding for Head Start? Why or why not?
Thank you, Dot. Well, I hope I'm re-elected. Head Start is actually a federal government program. It has been funded with federal dollars all these years. And now that federal money is drying up and the state is being asked to pay some of the load, it's a real difficult question because, like I said, it's federally funded. And I don't know how much they're going to ask for us to take over. We just have to wait and see what the budget request is.
Thank you. Same question, Bob. If elected, re-elected, will you support increased state funding for Head Start?
Well, if federal funding goes away or goes away to some extent, I think that we should take a look at that. I'm a firm believer and supporter of early child education. I think that the younger that we can start educating children, the better off we are. And if that's part of the mix, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Tracy.
Yeah, I agree with Bob. I think we should have universal access to early childhood education, Head Start being one of the programs that does that, but it's not universal. I think everybody ought to have this. This answers a serious problem for young families today, and that is daycare. It answers a problem for our whole state. We have a shortage of daycare providers. we should be able to, families should know that they're putting their child in a secure location where they're going to learn something and where they're going to grow and thrive. But I have a message for the teachers, and that's go easy on the academics. Read your Piaget, a little inside baseball there, but remember that it's about large muscle movement, and let's have plenty of time for play here. Academics is something that comes a little bit later, but get those kids, give every child an opportunity to succeed and bring them up to the level where they can do that in school.
Thank you. Daryl?
I absolutely agree that we should help fund it if the federal dollars go away. I pretty much agree with everybody up here, and we're all on the same page. The younger we get these kids in these programs, the better they're going to do through their school years, and the more productive citizens they're going to be when they graduate and get on with their working career. It's statistics prove it, that the sooner they get these kids into Head Start or whatever it is, the faster they develop and the better citizens they become.
Thank you. We'll begin this next question with you, Bob. Still in the line of education, this time a little later on in life for the students we're going to talk about next. How do you think the state legislature can support college students in reducing the amount of debt accumulated while attending our state institutions?
Well, a college debt load is a problem, and it's a problem for many. But I think in North Dakota we have some of the lowest tuition rates in the country. In North Dakota, education is a real buy, and I think that we need to keep our tuition rates low and to help the students in that aspect.
Thank you. Tracy?
One proposal of mine and one proposal of Ryan Taylor, who's running for Ag Commissioner. The first one of mine is that it would cost about 4 days oil tax collections for every graduate in the class of 2015 to go to a North Dakota college or trade school for the first year. Only about 4 days of oil tax collections. This is a strategic investment in the future. We've got to invest in the future. If we want to keep the boom going forever, if we want prosperity in the future, an educated workforce is the best way to do that. But the second one, Senator Taylor, my friend Senator Taylor's idea, the Bank of North Dakota should not be charging more than 1% interest on those student loans. We should collect the loans into the Bank of North Dakota and use the resources there to help those students and people out in the workforce that are carrying a debt load, to reduce that debt load by not having such a burden to climb.
Thank you. Daryl, same question. How do you think the state legislature can support college students in reducing the amount of debt accumulated while attending our state institutions?
Well, we definitely need to do something. Even as Bob said, tuition's low here. My kids that went to college would hardly agree with him that they don't have much tuition costs. It's expensive to go to school here. Is it expensive, more expensive out of state? Probably, but it is definitely not cheap to go to college here. We need to help these kids. We need to help them stay here in North Dakota. We, as Tracy said, let's give them a tax credit or whatever we have to do to keep these North Dakota kids here in the state, working here, growing their families here.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you. You know, we've done a pretty good job in North Dakota with our two-year colleges to help families save money. BSC is a perfect example. It's in District 35. It educates thousands of students a year in general subjects as well as in trades. A tuition freeze is a great thing. That's a way to save on the debt load. Another one for our four-year schools, have them do what some of the private colleges are doing. Guarantee that the students graduate in 4 years. You know, there's nothing more expensive than that fifth year of college that you squeeze 5 years of college in. No, I had that wrong. Squeeze 4 years of college into 5. Remediation classes is another thing. A lot of our kids have to be remediated, and those credits they take, those classes they take in remediation don't count. They aren't credited courses, and that's expensive.
Thank you. Well, I'm sad to admit that time has drawn to a close, and I need to allow each of you a minute to share some closing comments. Before we begin, I'd like to thank you all for being here this evening. Again, you will have 1 minute to provide your closing comments, and based on this evening's draw, we will begin with Bob.
Well, thank you, and thank you again to all the people involved in this. And I've had a wonderful evening, and I hope that you have too. District 35 is a small part of Bismarck, and we're all friends. We get along, and this has been very informative, and I hope that the viewers have enjoyed it. I'm a Swede, and if you know anything about Scandinavians, you know that the very last thing that we want to talk about is ourselves. And to brag or to tell somebody why we think we're better than somebody else is completely out of the question. So I would simply say to the residents of District 35 that if they've been pleased and happy with the way that I've represented them through the years, I would sincerely appreciate their vote again.
Thank you. Tracy.
One certain thing about oil, it has completely removed the argument that we can't afford to pay our teachers, that we can't afford to pay our state employees, that we can't afford to fix the roads or to invest in the quality of life, the parks and the infrastructure and the facilities. But another certain thing about oil is that its impacts have come to Bismarck, and we're not considered an oil impact community. So we pay ourselves for a jail that is a direct result of the rapid growth fueled by oil. Whether you're an oil-producing county or not, if you are impacted by oil, you're an oil impact community. And another thing about oil is that universally, all of us are just holding our breath and hoping that some of the great places, some of the extraordinary places, as the Attorney General had suggested, will still be there for our grandchildren. I hope they will be, and if elected, I'll work to make sure that they are.
Thank you. Now, Daryl.
Well, I want to thank you, Dot, and everybody here. It's been a good debate tonight. I want to close by asking everyone to, when I go door knocking, I want to hear everybody's concerns and issues. I want to represent people. That's what I do as my job every day. I want to represent the citizens of this district and, quite frankly, the whole state. We need to be represented better than what we are. I'm not going to go in this if elected. I'm not going to be a career politician. I'm not going to stay in there forever. I'm going to go in, do the best job I can, and pass it on to somebody else. We need to invest in our infrastructure. We need to get these pipelines put in the ground. We need to build refineries here. This will take truck traffic off the road by the thousands. We'll save our state hundreds of millions of dollars in road repairs. We need wind farms built. We need to invest in projects in this state that is going to create high-paying jobs with good pensions, good insurance, and keep the citizens in this state happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Karen.
Thank you, Dot. Republican policies are keeping North Dakota on the path to prosperity. Our priorities include funding infrastructure, public safety, education, and tax relief. We care deeply about preserving our unique way of life and are grateful for the bounty we enjoy from the diverse sectors of our economy. We are the envy of our country. Almost on a weekly basis, we hear of another category in which North Dakota is leading the nation. We have worked hard to manage spending and essential services in North Dakota state government during these times, and I look forward to continuing to work for the people of District 35. I would appreciate your vote on November 4th.
Like many of you, I wish to extend gratitude to the Bismarck Tribune, Dakota Media Access, and the volunteers from the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum. Thank you also to the viewers at home and the audience members here tonight for taking the time to learn about the candidates and issues. This program will replay several times on Government Access, Cable Channel 2, and will be available online at freetv.org in the days leading up to the Legislative District 35 House election. Before we close this candidate forum, I want to remind you all that voting is easy in North Dakota, and you can find voting information at your county auditor's office and from the office of the North Dakota Secretary of State. Thank you all, and good night.